Hey guys, welcome back to Mummy Cooks Homemade. I've got you positioned over my shoulder at the minute so you can see what I'm doing. So, this might look a bit gross. That's just literally stewed beef. I had a big joint in the pot yesterday with some gravy and onions, and this is literally what's left over, basically. And I've also got a bowl here with just gravy. Don't know if everybody uses these. This is just called a pie plate. So it doesn't make a ginormous pie, deep pie, it makes a shallow pie. So you can have it built up a little bit, but essentially it's a shallow pie. So this is what I'm going to be using today, and I'm going to be making short crust pastry. And all I'm going to do is make a leftover steak, mushroom and potato pie. That is it. Nothing else. All I'm going to do is dice up these. I'm only using 3 very small potatoes. I'm going to dice those up, and they're going to go into a pan so that they're soft, because the pie won't take long to cook because the meat's cooked. The paste, it's literally just waiting for the pastry to cook through. So yeah. So first I'm going to chop up the 3 chestnut mushrooms I've got. I'm not going to pre-cook these. This is basically a filler for the pie, that's why I'm only putting 3 in. And they do tend to cook down. On its own there's not enough steak, but for a cheap tea, if you add in a couple of potatoes, a couple of mushrooms if you've got some laying about, even if you were saving them mushrooms for another recipe, taking 3 from it is not going to hurt that recipe, I wouldn't have thought. And these will just go into the pie. So, them 3 mushrooms, diced them up, it's given me a pot of mushrooms. So I'll leave that there. Now bring in, so I'm just going to peel these potatoes. The bubbling noise that you can hear is a little fish tank. It's the air pump. I'm going to I'd have to turn the air pump off to get rid of that noise, which I'm obviously not going to do, so. Not so bad when I'm cooking on the stove because you can't hear it so much. So this is just a use up your leftovers sort of thing. I had to think of what I have and haven't made on the channel, and pies is quite high on the list. They could be classed as winter warmers. Steak pie, you can either have it with some mash, even with the little tiny mini potatoes that are going in it. You can still have mashed potato with it to help soak up all this gravy. Roast potatoes, which is most popular in my house, than mash. So these, like I say, I am going to do quite small. So I'm going to cut them into chip size and then dice that into 3. There goes one. There's only one that goes flying. There we go. Again, the potato is a filler, a cheap filler. If you're on a budget, I'm not saying I'm on a budget, but I don't want to waste that beef. But there's a lot of people out there at the minute that are on a tight budget. We've got Christmas coming up as well. Use up your leftovers, guys. And you'd be surprised, sometimes the meat, it's like with stew, it's always better the next day. Sometimes meat like this is better the next day. It's already seasoned. It's got the onion in it. So that's them 3 potatoes. So you'll see that meat, these potatoes, I mean there's not tons, plus the mushrooms, is going to fill that pie plate now. And that took me what, 5 minutes or so? So I'm just going to cook off these potatoes and I'll come back and we'll get the pastry done. Okay? Right guys, we're back and you zoomed in too far, as usual. So we are back and we're moving on to said pastry for the pie. So in here I've got 280 grams of plain flour. Why is that sticking in my way? Oh, that's it, that's better. 280 grams of plain flour, 75 grams of butter, these have got to be cold, and 75 grams of lard. So I'm just going to turn it on low. It sounds like when you got it on really low like this, it sounds like the mixer's struggling. It's not, it's just the sound it makes. It's not struggling. Will do once it starts to form more. So we just want it to make little breadcrumbs, that sort of consistency. You have little chunks of fat. That doesn't really matter. I am too lazy to do pastry all the time, and I tend to do it in here. I don't mind admitting that. Pastry is not my bag. So, you're going to need very little cold water, so be very, very careful how much you put in. Put a few drops in, and it will start to bring it together real fast. Make sure that that water's cold as well. I can't tell you how much water, because each batch of flour is different. How much liquid it will absorb is different, so it's literally not much, just enough to bring it together in a dough ball. Done. Like I say, just enough to bring it together in a dough ball. Really doesn't take much at all. So that's the pastry. Now if you ain't got one of these, you can use a hand mixer. You ain't got one of them, you've got an hand. There. Perfect. That will go in the fridge for half an hour. 15 minutes in, I'm going to preheat the oven, gas mark 4, and start putting this pie together. I'll bring you back when we do the pastry. Right, I'm back again. So the potatoes are done. Let me turn that around so I can see what the camera's seeing. I might look at it, be looking at the ceiling or something. So the potatoes are done, that's all there is. And they're just before falling apart. So all I'm going to do is use the pan that had the water in. It's not going to look too appetising, guys. I mean, you've got stewed steak with some gravy on there, so it's about the taste when it comes out. There's the mushrooms. And if it'll plop. Plop. Oh, that sound. Right, okay. Just grabbing a spoon. And I'm just going. So if I pull that apart, look, you can see the chunks. That's one chunk of beef. Again there, another full chunk of beef. But it just wasn't enough on its own. That's a chunk all on its own here. I might break some of them up actually, because in a pie I think they're a bit too big. Give it a mix up. This meat has got gravy on it, but because it's cold, it's actually literally stuck to the gravy. So I am going to add in a couple. Because I don't want it to be bone dry. But I also want to have some gravy left for after, so that's a bit better. I've done some trimmed fine beans. They needed using up, so they got chucked in. Not in the pie. There. Oh good lord, that was a big bit. Now, forgetful. Smoked salt. Everyone knows I love my smoked salt. Looks like a lot, but you really can't taste it like table salt or Himalayan salt. Right, that's my filling. Now, I'm going to grab my pastry. Bring it over. Move some of my schnizzle. That's it. No, not in there. That'll do. That'll do. I don't know if anybody else talks to themselves while they're baking and that, but yeah, that's me. So I'm going to chop this in half. Make sure your pastry's cold, guys. What I'm going to do is my bottom layer onto my tin. And then I'm going to blind bake it like I usually do. just the bottom. Ain't gotta be pretty. You know what, I really do hate pastry, guys. Hate it. You would never ever catch me on this channel making puff pastry from scratch, ever. If that's something you want to see, I can recommend some channels, but it's not going to happen on this one. No, it's not something I enjoy. So, I want some paper. Paper for my beanies. And we chuck them in. Can't recommend ceramic beads enough. I've used rice and all that. It's not good. Definitely not. Because of the shape of these, it really does help to maintain the shape of the pastry inside. You watch this come out all manky now. Now I've said that. There we go. That's going to go in. And I'm naughty because I forgot to preheat. That's going to go in a gas mark 4 oven for 10 minutes. No, give it 15 minutes. The gas 4. Low down in the oven. Then take the paper off. Pour the beads into something that can manage something red hot. I mean, obviously not something plastic or something like that, into like a normal pot cereal bowl or something. So put them in there and allow them to cool down. Mine usually take about an hour and a half. Pop the pie back in and just brown it. And then hopefully when that goes in and there's not over much gravy on it, look, hopefully get a soggy bottom. So I'll bring you back once that bottom bit's done and we start to fill the pie up. Alright dudes. Right, so I've allowed the pastry to cool and I've popped the filling inside, making sure that there's equal amounts of meat all over the place. And now I'm just gonna wipe down and do the top. I've got all the way to this bloody stage and just realised that I turned you off. You've missed nothing. All I've done is just put the lid on. That's it. All I'm doing now is taking off these dirty edges. So that's the cooked pastry at the bottom, the fresh at the top. Just make sure you don't drop it. Just to tidy it up a bit. The best tool for this, because the bottom pastry is cooked, is this. One of these. Make some holes in your pie. That way you won't steam it. And you want one egg, get a mix, mix. And then for 10 seconds pretend you're Van Gogh and just paint. This will give you, I was going to say cake then, give your pie even some colour. Stop it coming out looking anemic. Hopefully. Mine will come out looking like anemic now. You watch. I do still have half of the gravy left over, so I'll use that later. I was going to have this with, what's the date in my worktop? I was going to have this with potatoes, but I think I'm going to do some chips with it. I think the kids have preferred chips, to be honest. So this is ready to go into the oven. It's literally a case of heating all the ingredients through and cooking the top layer of pastry. So mine's going to go on low on gas 3 because it's kids' home time now. Husband will be going to get them, and this will just cook on low for about an hour, and then get the kids fed. So that's it. I'll show you it when it comes out of the oven. Okay. So this is the pie. There's a little bit left. That's it. You can see the meat and that in it. That's all that's left on the actual pie plate. I will insert a picture of it when it was intact. But yeah, there's a pie. Just having it with chips and a bit of veg. Uses up the leftovers. Quick recipe. Thanks a lot, guys. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.